We hear from an early age, work hard, get better, earn more, and eventually you will become wealthy. It sounds reasonable because part of it is true. Hard work can build skills. Skills can make you more productive. Productivity can increase your earning power, and higher earning power can produce a higher income. But there is a step that is in this story that often gets ignored. What happens to the money after you earn it? Because income and wealth are not the same thing. Income is a flow. It is money received over a period of time. Wealth is a stock. It is the value of what you own after accounting for what you owe. Someone can earn a very high income and accumulate surprisingly little wealth. Someone can earn less, retain more of it, invest that capital appropriately, and allow it to compound. So the question isn't whether hard work matters. It clearly does. The more interesting question is what hard work is supposed to accomplish, and that takes us from earning to owning. Imagine two people. One earns twice as much as the other. At first, the conclusion seems obvious. The higher earner must be wealthier. But suppose the higher earner spends almost everything and invests only a small part of their income. The lower earner spends much less and consistently converts a larger share of their income into investments. We still can't tell who will become wealthier because income tells us what enters the system. It doesn't tell us how much of that would eventually survive. By the end of a year, income may have become savings, investments, property, or debt repayment, or it may simply have been consumed. That is why a more useful measure is net worth, assets minus liabilities. Someone could own a large amount of property and financial assets and still have relatively little net worth if those assets are heavily financed by debt. The larger number on an asset side doesn't change that. A large salary is therefore better understood as an opportunity to build wealth rather than wealth itself. And that distinction becomes even more important when we look at what actually produces a high income. Your ability to earn money is itself economically valuable. Your education, your skills, your experience, your reputation, your ability to solve problems. An economist would broadly describe these as forms of human capital. Human capital is what allows you to produce economic value through your work. A highly skilled surgeon can earn more because very few people can perform the same work. An experienced engineer can solve problems that require years of accumulated knowledge. An entrepreneur can build a business that keeps producing value through its people and systems. Hard work matters because it can develop this productive capacity. The basic chain looks like this. Skills increase productivity, which increases your earning power and ultimately your income. So far, hard work is doing exactly what we expect it to do. But then the chain changes. The next steps are income creates the opportunity to save. Those savings can become productive assets. And over time, those assets can compound into wealth. Those are different economic activities. A person can become exceptionally good at earning money without becoming equally good at converting that money into lasting capital. Hard work can create potential for wealth. It does not guarantee that potential will be converted. And there is a practical reason this matters. You can work only so many hours. You only have so many years in your career. Your profession can change. The economy can change. Eventually, labor income becomes less certain. Capital works differently. A productive asset can potentially continue generating economic value without requiring you to personally perform the underlying work every day. That is why transition from selling time to owning productive assets matters. Higher income gives you more capacity to build wealth, but capacity isn't the same thing as accumulation. One of the biggest reasons is lifestyle inflation. A promotion can mean a larger home, a more expensive vehicle, more holidays, more restaurants, more subscriptions, higher recurring expenses. None of these things are automatically wrong. Money is supposed to improve your life. The problem appears when a temporary increase in earning power becomes a permanent increase in fixed commitments. A bonus can become a permanent monthly payment. A salary increase can become a larger mortgage. A successful career can gradually become a lifestyle that requires the career to remain successful forever. The goal isn't to maximize saving at the expense of living. Money is a means to support a life. The real objective is alignment between resources, goals, risk, time, and quality of life. So the question isn't how little can I spend? It is how much of the value created by my work should become lasting capital, that is conversion, and it can fail in another way. You can become extremely active with your investments and mistake that activity for progress. There is a strange feature of financial markets. Working harder does not necessarily produce better results. If you spend another 500 hours learning a professional skill, you may become more capable. If you spend another 500 hours building a business, you may create more output. But spending another 500 hours watching stock prices doesn't create a mechanical relationship between effort and return. Markets don't pay you because you worked harder. They pay according to what happens to the assets you own, the prices you paid, the risks you accepted, and the decisions you made. A research by Barber and Odian is useful here. Their study of 66,465 households found that most active traders substantially underperformed the market during their sample period. The important idea is simple. Investment activity is not the same thing as investment skill. More recent evidence makes the same point even clearer. SEBI's study covering financial year 2022 through financial year 2024 found that 93% of individual equity F&O traders lost money, with aggregate losses exceeding rupees 1.8 lakh crore over the 3-year period. Its subsequent financial year 2024 to 2025 analysis found that approximately 91% of individual traders in the equity derivatives segment lost money, with aggregate net losses of approximately rupees 1.056 lakh crore after transaction costs. These numbers need to be interpreted carefully. They do not prove that every derivative strategy is irrational. Derivatives have legitimate purposes. They can be used for hedging, risk transfer, price discovery, and institutional portfolio management. The narrower lesson is more interesting. A person can spend hours studying markets, watching prices, and placing trades, and genuinely feel that they are working hard with their money. But effort alone does not change the economics of the activity. If anything, excessive activity can introduce more costs and behavioral mistakes. So when people say, make your money work harder, there is a question hiding underneath it. Work harder, doing what? There is another trap that can catch successful people. The belief that because you are good at making decisions in one area, you must also be good at making decisions everywhere. Sir Isaac Newton provides an extraordinary historical example. Sir Isaac Newton was one of the greatest scientists who ever lived. He also invested during the South Sea bubble. In 1720, enthusiasm around South Sea shares became extreme. Oxford's historical research documents the share price rising from around £350 near the end of April to almost £600 by the end of May and roughly £950 by the end of June before the collapse that followed. Sir Isaac Newton lost money in the episode, but some details commonly attached to the story are uncertain. The frequently repeated claim that he lost exactly £20,000 is not established conclusively. There is also a famous quote, often attributed to Sir Isaac Newton, about understanding the movements of planets, but not madness of people. But historians aren't certain that Sir Isaac Newton ever actually said it. Those details aren't necessary. The important fact is simpler. An extraordinary intelligent person participated in a financial bubble and suffered losses. That doesn't make Sir Isaac Newton any less intelligent. It makes the episode useful. Financial markets expose people to forces that intelligence alone cannot eliminate. Social proof, FOMO, regret, extrapolation, overconfidence, and the changing perception of risk when prices keep rising. A person can be highly competent in medicine, engineering, science, technology, or business and still lack the specific knowledge required to evaluate an investment. Expertise is often domain specific. You don't have to know everything, you have to know where your expertise ends. Your career is one of your most valuable assets. It is also one of your most concentrated risks. Consider a professional athlete. The earning window can be unusually short, while the financial life that follows can be decades longer. Professional athletes are often used as examples of people who earned enormous incomes and later faced financial problems. But the popular statistics around athlete bankruptcy are not always reliable. A 2015 study published in the American Economic Review examined bankruptcy filings among NFL players. It found that about 1.9% of the players in the study had filed for bankruptcy within 2 years of retirement. By 12 years, the cumulative figure had risen to 15.7%, roughly 1 in 6. The point is not that most athletes go bankrupt. They don't. The deeper issue is that a short period of unusually high earning power may have to support a much longer financial life. The same principle applies outside sport. Imagine someone whose income depends almost entirely on one industry. Now imagine that most of their investment portfolio is also concentrated in companies from that same industry. That is a double hit: income risk plus portfolio risk. Career disruption doesn't necessarily mean someone failed. Technology can automate work, companies can outsource, businesses can restructure, industries can decline. Skills that were highly valuable 10 years ago may become less valuable later. Even someone who performs exceptionally well can find that the market no longer demands the same work. This is one reason accumulated financial capital matters. It creates another source of economic capacity, and liquidity matters within that system. Consider someone with a high salary, a large mortgage, expensive fixed commitments, concentrated investments, and very little cash. If their income suddenly disappears, they may be forced to sell investments during a downturn. An emergency reserve is not designed to maximize returns. Its purpose is to prevent a temporary income problem from becoming a permanent capital loss. Insurance serves a related purpose. It is primarily about risk management rather than wealth creation. A financial plan is not complete simply because the investment portfolio has a high expected return. A single uninsured event can destroy years of accumulated wealth. Building wealth therefore involves two activities: growing the balance sheet and protecting the balance sheet. There is a useful mental model buried inside all of this. You effectively have two careers. The first career is the obvious one. You learn, you work, you improve, you earn. The second career begins with the money that career produces. You save, you allocate, you invest, you manage risk, you preserve capital, you allow time to work. The first career determines how much financial fuel enters the system. The second determines how much of that fuel becomes accumulated wealth. Someone can be extremely successful in the first career and surprisingly careless in the second. And the reverse can happen too. A person doesn't necessarily need an extraordinary income to build meaningful wealth if they consistently convert part of their income into productive capital and give it time. This is why make your money work is useful only if we understand what it actually means. It means owning claims on future economic output, shares of businesses, bonds, productive real estate, business ownership, diversified investment vehicles. The mechanism is ownership. Once income starts becoming capital, another problem appears. How do you manage it without destroying the progress you have made? Financial literacy helps. A 2026 meta-analysis by Divya Bharati Dandapani and Chinnadurai Kadiravan examined 37 empirical studies involving 18,835 respondents and found a strong positive association between financial literacy and investment decisions. That finding is useful, but the wording matters. The study identifies an association. It does not establish that financial literacy alone causes better investment outcomes, and it certainly doesn't mean everyone should become their own portfolio manager. Complexity can have a justification for professional help. A financial advisor, a portfolio manager, a tax professional, an estate planner. There is nothing inherently wrong with the delegation. The problem is delegation without understanding. You should still be able to answer the basic questions. What do I own? Why do I own it? What risks am I taking? What does it cost? How diversified is it? What happens if the market falls sharply? And what conflicts of interest that might exist? The same principle applies to investment products. A mutual fund can provide diversification and professional management. An active manager can potentially add value. A passive approach can also be rational. The evidence doesn't justify turning any one of these into a universal answer. The better question is whether the strategy, cost, risk and service make sense for the investor's objectives. Fees deserve particular attention here because compounding works in both directions. A small recurring cost doesn't remain small in economic terms. It reduces the capital that remains available to compound, and diversification matters for a similar reason. It cannot eliminate every form of risk, but it can reduce unnecessary concentration. The objective is not to own everything. It is to avoid taking risks that are more concentrated than you need them to be. That brings us to a simple framework. Think of wealth creation as two engines. The first engine is human capital: learn, work, improve, earn. The second engine is financial capital: save, allocate, compound, preserve. The first engine creates the fuel. The second determines how much of that fuel becomes wealth. If the first engine works brilliantly, but the second leaks money through excessive consumption, bad investments, unnecessary fees, speculation, or unmanaged risk, the entire system can still underperform. And there is no reason to make the opposite mistake either. The goal is not to become obsessed with saving. Money is meant to support a life. The goal is to make the relationship between today's work and tomorrow's freedom more deliberate. That means asking, how much of my earning power becomes capital? What do I actually own? What risks am I taking? How much of my financial position depends on my continued employment? How much liquidity do I have? How much am I paying? And how much time does my capital have to compound? Those questions are more useful than simply asking whether your salary is high. So what should you actually do with all of this? There is a fairly simple framework. First, know your net worth. Don't judge your financial progress only by your salary. Know what you own, subtract what you owe, and watch how that number changes over time. Second, know your savings rate. It is simply the amount you save divided by your income. It tells you how much of your earning power is actually being converted into capital. A high savings rate is not automatically enough. What happens to those savings still matters. Third, pay attention to concentration. Your career is already an economic asset. If your income depends heavily on one industry, think carefully before making your investment portfolio dependent on exactly the same risk. Fourth, maintain enough liquidity. The purpose of emergency cash is not to produce the highest possible return. It is there so that a temporary income shock doesn't force you to sell long-term investments at the wrong time. Fifth, understand what you own. If you are using a fund manager or financial advisor, that's fine. But you should still understand the basic purpose of the investment, the risks, the cost structure, and the incentives involved. Sixth, look at the costs. A fee may appear small in a single year, but the money that leaves the portfolio today is the money that cannot compound in the future. Seventh, don't confuse activity with progress. You don't have to trade constantly. You don't have to watch markets every day. And you don't have to make your portfolio complicated to make it productive. And finally, give the process time. The point of converting income into productive capital is that, over time, your capital can begin generating income alongside your work. That is second career. Your first career produces the money. Your second career determines what happens to it. So does working hard make you wealthy? It can. In many cases, hard work is an essential part of the process. Without valuable skills, there may be little earning power. Without income, there may be little capacity to save. But all of this shows that working hard and earning more do not automatically translate into lasting wealth. There are several steps in between. Hard work can create expertise. Expertise can create productivity. Productivity can create income. Income can create savings. Savings can create investment capital. Investment capital can become ownership. Ownership can compound. And accumulated capital can eventually create financial resilience and greater freedom. Every transition requires a separate decision. That is why a person can spend 20 years becoming exceptional at a profession and still fail to become financially secure. Not because the work was worthless. The work may have been extremely valuable. The problem is that earning power and accumulated capital are different economic quantities, and that distinction changes the way we should think about financial success. The objective isn't to work less. It isn't to work more aggressively. It isn't to trade more. It isn't to build the most complicated portfolio. It is to make sure that some of the economic value created by your work is converted into assets that can continue to grow after you stop working. Perhaps the simplest way to remember all of this is as a sequence. Hard work creates potential. Income realizes that potential. Saving preserves part of it. Investment allocates it. Compounding magnifies it. Financial discipline protects it. Time determines how far it can go. That is why the real distinction is not between working hard and investing. It is between earning and owning. Your career can create the income. Your financial decisions determine how much survives. Capital allocation determines where it goes. Time determines how long it compounds. And behavior determines whether the process survives fear, greed, uncertainty, and bad decisions. A successful career can make you very good at making money. The separate skill is learning what to do with the money once you have made it. Keep some, allocate it carefully, protect it, give productive assets time, and gradually the purpose of all the work can change. At the beginning of a career, you work for income. Later, accumulated capital can begin working alongside you. Eventually, if enough capital has been built and preserved, it can reduce how dependent your future is on selling your time. That is not an argument against hard work. It is the reason hard work matters. The point is not to spend your entire life working harder merely to earn more. The point is to convert some of what your work produces into something that can outlast the work itself. Because the question that matters most isn't simply how hard am I working? It is what is the economic result of all the work after the income has been earned. That is where a successful career can begin to become lasting wealth. This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial or investment advice. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of capital. Please do your own research, consider your individual circumstances, and consult a qualified professional where appropriate.